Hello everybody, my name's Dave, thanks for joining me, and today it's been raining again. It seems to have been raining every single day except for the days when I've got something planned, and then it's really nice. It was really nice on Thursday, and I had to take my daughter to the vets with a new bird. It was nice on Friday. I had to go to the doctors and go to Specsavers to get some new glasses which I've lost. It comes to Saturday, I've got a chance to do the car and it's pouring with rain again. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is do you a different video. I'm going to do the fundamental differences between 4-stroke and 2-stroke engines and the difference between petrol and diesel engines. Now I understand that many of you already know this, but maybe there's one or two things in here that you could learn from. Maybe there's some people out there who know nothing about these engines. There's enough on the internet. Anyway, I'm going to be reading from the script, so I won't always be looking at the camera. So first of all, let's define the word stroke. This word stroke simply means one full rotation of the piston from intake to exhaust and back to intake again. So if it's a 4-stroke engine, it means it has 4 strokes to get back to the point where it was at the start. If it's a 2-stroke engine, it has 2 strokes to get back to the point at the start. A stroke is a full rotation of one part of the piston. Okay? So a 2-stroke engine has 1 power stroke every 2 rotations, or 1 rotation of the crankshaft. Whereas a 4-stroke only has 1 power stroke every 4 rotations and has 2 rotations of the crankshaft. It has nothing to do with the amount of cylinders or anything other than the amount of rotations one piston does to create movement of a vehicle or rotation of a motor. The more cylinders tend to give the smoother running as opposed to more power. In the latter point, I have not softened to the fact that electric cars are the future. No, I am simply referring to generators and engines that don't move around in a vehicle. Electric cars do not use combustion engines, whereas a hybrid car does. So why 4-stroke and why 2-stroke engines? While 2-stroke engines on chainsaws etc. tend to be pull cord start, some 2-stroke motorcycles have electric starts. Starter motors add weight, and so handheld tools are normally pull cord start. Whereas the vast majority of 4-stroke engines are electric start, apart from some lawn mowers, probably to keep the costs down. Generally a 2-stroke is petrol and a smaller engine, although Comma did have a 3-cylinder 2-stroke diesel truck in the 70s. I can remember my days in the Air Force. We had a mechanical handler which had a single-cylinder diesel with a hand crank for starting it. It was a single cylinder. So the mechanical handler was a single cylinder diesel. It was still used by the section I worked in. It wasn't used for aircraft anymore, but it used to be used to pull Spitfires around in the Second World War. We call them donkeys because they were now used for shuffling big generators around and no longer for aircraft. And now they'll be obsolete, I reckon. 2-strokes are used in chainsaws and other small engine power tools because they're much lighter for carrying around and used by hand. 2-stroke engines tend to be smoky, and I'll explain why in a minute. The main difference is that if a 2-stroke is not smoking, then it's faulty, and if a 4-stroke is smoking, then it is faulty. So the main differences between the 2-stroke and the 4-stroke engines. At a fundamental level, the main difference is the way the engines are lubricated. A 2-stroke engine uses 2-stroke oil, and the same as a 4-stroke engine uses engine oil to lubricate it. But it does it differently. Anyone who's ever owned a 2-stroke will know that the fuel has to be mixed with oil, something like a 20-to-1 mix, where it's 20 parts petrol to 1 part 2-stroke oil. Most 2-stroke engines will have a sticker on the fuel tank to know what mix it could be, anywhere between 15-to-1 to 28-to-1. How a 2-stroke engine works and why it needs oil in the fuel. Well, a 2-stroke engine completes a power cycle in just 2 strokes of the piston, which occurs in 1 revolution of the crankshaft. During the downstroke, the fuel-air mixture enters the two-stroke engine does not utilise a sump for lubrication. Instead it is mixed into the fuel, 2-stroke oil, and lubricates the crank and the fuel as the fuel-air mixture passes by and the oil settles onto the metal parts. So on the downstroke, the piston moves from top dead centre to the bottom dead centre, or TDC and BDC. Fresh air and fuel enter the combustion chamber through the inlet port. This is due to the piston travelling downward on the power stroke. This compresses the fuel-air mixture below the piston, forces out the exhaust gases when the piston gets below the intake and exhaust ports and they are opened. So, as the piston goes down, it uncovers two ports. There's an exhaust port and an inlet port. The inlet is forced down, is pressurised by the piston going down, which forces the fuel-air mixture in and the exhaust gases out. The crankcase is filled with the fuel-air mixture. The momentum then sends the piston back up, compressing a new fuel-air mixture, and the spark ignites it around top dead centre, and the piston is forced downward on the power stroke again. On the upstroke, the piston moves from bottom dead centre to the top dead centre using momentum of both the vehicle and the flywheel. The fuel-air mixture again is compressed and the spark plug ignites the fuel-air mix just above top dead centre, causing an explosion that pushes the piston down on the power stroke to the bottom dead centre point again. As the piston descends, it uncovers the exhaust port and the intake port, allowing the exhaust gases to escape whilst it forces it in. Any unused two-stroke oil in the fuel is burnt at this point, and this is why two-stroke engines smoke far more than any other engine, and the whole cycle then happens again. How a four-stroke engine works and why it does not use mixed oil. A four-stroke engine works through a cycle of 4 distinct strokes: intake, compression, power and exhaust. They are often referred to as suck, squeeze, bang, blow. During these strokes, the piston moves up and down in the cylinder, sucking in air mixture, squeezing it, igniting it to produce a bang, and then blowing the exhaust gases out. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. The overview of a four-stroke engine is: a four-stroke engine is a type of internal combustion engine that completes 4 distinct strokes of the piston to produce power. The cycle is essentially for converting fuel into mechanical energy commonly used in vehicles and machinery. A single 4-cylinder 4-stroke can be quite slow revving, whereas a multi-cylinder 4-stroke is not. However, they're not as high as a 2-stroke revving. Please note, these descriptions for the vast majority assume that the use of a carburettor to supply the fuel, where most modern engines now use direct fuel injection. The only thing into the cylinder in a direct injection engine is cold, unburnt air. The fuel is injected just before top dead centre and then ignited. So, 4 strokes. The first stroke, the cycle begins with the piston moving down from the top of the cylinder, top dead centre, to bottom dead centre, right at the bottom of the stroke. The piston starts to move downward, the intake valve opens, allowing air-fuel mixture to enter the cylinder as the piston creates a vacuum. As the piston approaches the bottom, the intake valve closes. The second stroke, after the intake stroke, the piston moves back up to top dead centre with both valves closed. This compresses the air-fuel mixture, increasing the pressure and temperature, which prepares it for ignition. The third stroke, at top dead centre, a spark plug ignites the compressed air fuel mixture petrol. The rapid combustion generates high pressure gases that force the piston down to bottom dead centre, producing mechanical energy. Once the piston reaches bottom dead centre, just after this the exhaust valves open. The piston moves back up to top dead centre, pushing out the spent gases from the combustion process, and as the piston hits the top dead centre, the exhaust valve is closed and the inlet valve is opening, and the whole process starts again from this point. Each complete cycle requires 2 revolutions of the crankshaft. 4-stroke engines are known for their efficiency and low emissions compared to 2-stroke engines, as they separate the intake and exhaust processes. In many vehicles, a 4-stroke engine will have at least 2 pistons, but more commonly 4 pistons. So the engine tends to run smoother due to the piston's power stroke being at different times from the other pistons. 4-cylinder engines will tighten each power stroke in a manner that fires an outer and then an inner cylinder on a 1-3-4-2 basis or a 1-2-4-3 to keep the engine smooth and not shaking around. Also, the 2 inner pistons and the 2 outer pistons are travelling at the same speed together, opposite of each other. Piston number 1 may be starting the firing stroke, whereas piston number 4 will be starting the intake stroke. So as piston number 1 fires, it forces piston number 4 down to also intake fuel air mixture into there. At the same time, pistons 2 and 3 are coming upwards. 2 is likely on the compression stroke, 3 is likely on the exhaust stroke, depending on the firing order. And this is why 4-cylinder engines are so common. Advantages of 2-stroke engines over 4-stroke engines. Power to weight ratio. 2-stroke engines can produce power with every crankshaft revolution, resulting in higher power to weight ratio compared to 4-stroke engines. They have fewer moving parts and do not require valves, making them lighter and simpler to manufacture. Because the oil is not held underneath the engine in a sump, it can operate in any position, even upside down, which is beneficial for handheld tools like chainsaws. 2-stroke engines are commonly used in small portable applications such as chainsaws, motorcycles, mopeds, outboard motors. These engines are favoured for their mechanical simplicity, high power output and compact designs. This systematic approach allows the 4-stroke engines to provide a balance of power, efficiency and reliability, making the most common engine type in the most modern vehicles. They do not require a fuel, air and oil mix because they utilise a sump that holds the oil, which gets pumped around under pressure to lubricate and help cool the engine, mainly due to the fact that they sit flat on the road. So we're talking about petrol and diesel now. The main difference is that the petrol engine uses a spark plug to heat and ignite the fuel air mixture, whereas a diesel uses compression and heat to fire the fuel air mixture. Additionally, diesel engines are generally more fuel efficient and produce more torque, making them suitable for heavier vehicles, whereas petrol engines are often used in lighter vehicles and have lower initial costs. While both serve the same basic purpose of converting chemical energy from fuel into mechanical power, they operate on different principles, use different fuels and have distinct characteristics in terms of performance, efficiency and maintenance. So are there any other differences? Petrol engines are faster and produce higher horsepower. Petrol has a 34.8 megajoule of energy per litre. Diesel engines are slower and produce higher torque. Diesel has a 38.6 megajoules of energy per litre, which is why it's better on fuel consumption. A brief history lesson. In 1876, a German engineer named Nikolaus August Otto created the first practical petrol engine. The petrol engine operates using the Otto cycle, which is still in use today and still bears the name of its creator. In the 1890s, a German thermal engineer named Rudolf Christian Karl Diesel developed the diesel engine based on the diesel cycle. The advantages of a petrol engine. In general, petrol engines are more powerful than diesels in terms of horsepower. The fact that petrol engines are simpler to tune up naturally benefits them. It has a better price to power ratio and burns fuel more effectively than diesel. The disadvantages of petrol. So the advantages of a diesel engine. Diesel typically has a fuel efficiency that is between 25 and 30% better than comparable gasoline engines. Since diesel engines lack distributors and spark plugs, they never require ignition tune-ups. Diesel engines are built tougher to withstand higher compression, so therefore they last longer and perform better. Compared to electric or hybrid vehicles, diesel engines offer better fuel efficiency without the hassle. The disadvantages of a diesel engine are: due to their more advanced technological design, diesel engine repairs are more expensive than gas-powered counterparts. Although diesel fuel is more effective, it cannot deliver a high-speed performance. Compared to gasoline-powered vehicles, diesel vehicles are more expensive to buy. That concludes the video. I hope it's cleared some things up for some people. Thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!